welcome to Coach K's Corner. I'm Dave Hilbert, IPFW Sports Information Director. I think you guys split a couple of conference games at home last week. Started out with a game against USI, a team that had beaten you earlier in the season, one of the up-and-coming teams in the league, and you ended up losing another close game. What were some of the keys down the stretch in that game?
Well, USI, is well known for their full court press for 40 minutes and very intense, aggressive, physical man-to-man defense. It was a very hard-fought game, a very physical game. The girls came out with a lot of bruises. Down at their place when we played them earlier, we were down by as much as, I believe, 15 points, came back, lost by 6. We were very hopeful that if we got them on our court, that perhaps we could change things around. I am pleased to say that we did hang with them throughout the game. We had the lead throughout a large majority of the game, but just a few points. 12-point lead at halftime. I attribute a lot of that to the fact that they shot 18% from the field. They were getting some good shots inside, and they just weren't going down. And we were taking care of the basketball and doing the things that we needed to do first half. They did substitute frequently. As far as keeping up with them, I'm very pleased with the fact that I play 6-7 people, and they were able to keep up with them. And even though they were subbing frequently, we hung in there to the bitter end. And unfortunately, in the final moments of the game, things didn't go our way. Our free throws didn't drop when we needed them to. And theirs did toward the end of the ball game when they had the free throws with 5 seconds to go that sealed the game.
Now early, well, I guess most of the first half, like you said, they shot 19% from the floor. I mean, 5 out of 27. Seems like that's happened a few times in the gym with some of the teams that are normally pretty good field goal shooting teams. And Northern Kentucky was one that came in here and just must have missed a dozen layups, shot very poorly. Is that just one of those things, or it seems like there have been 3 or 4 teams that have come in and just shot horribly in at least one half of the game?
Yeah, I don't really know the reason for that. I would like to say it's our tenacious defense, and that might have something to do with it. But then I look back, too, in our first GLVC game with Indianapolis, and they came out and shot well over 50% the first half, which was incredible. We had we lost by 12 points. So, you have the teams coming in that are shooting poorly first half, and then you also have those coming in shooting very, very well first half. So it's hard to say why.
Now, you guys got out-rebounded by a pretty big margin against USI. Did that happen the last time you faced them?
I believe last time we played them, we were pretty even on the boards. I was displeased with the fact that we were pretty even on the boards first half of the second game here. But second half, they basically clobbered us on the boards. A lot of that had to do with the fact they had so many offensive rebounds, and again, they were getting second and third shots. They're missing the first or second shot inside the paint. We weren't getting the box out, and they would come up with a third shot or draw the foul.
Then another number that jumps out off the stat page is the number of turnovers. I think they had 35, IPFW had 29. A lot of those in the first half, I think especially for you guys. Any particular reason for that, or is it just sloppy play?
I felt the entire game was what I term a barn ball game, somewhat out of control, very physical, a lot of turnovers. I was pleased with the fact that we had fewer than they did, considering the fact that they're the team that comes out and presses for 40 minutes and just keeps putting fresh people in, and they all end up with a number of fouls, but they can afford to do that where we cannot. We did force a lot of turnovers, got a lot of steals. I guess it all depends, too, what's the outcome of the turnover. Do we take the ball down and convert, or do we throw it away also, or do we get one shot off and they get the board? It all depends on the outcome of that. But I was surprised to see that they had so many turnovers, and if we could have reduced perhaps a few of ours, it could have been a different outcome as well.
I guess had another close loss. It's like I think the 7th, 8th time this year out of your losses that you've lost by fewer than 5 points. Does it ever start to get to you after a while and start to look back at the scoreboard and think, hey, with a couple more points here and there, we could be 12-8 instead of 7-13?
We always look at that fact, and we can just blame it on the coaching staff. One thing we did point out, this last win over Kentucky Wesleyan, again, a similar situation. We're up by two points, and we win by 4, but we're up by 2 during the timeout. And that's something that I very clearly reminded the team of in the huddle was, hey, here we are again, just a few points ahead, final moments of the game. Let's get out there and demonstrate some good discipline. Let's let our experience show. Let's take care of the basketball and do what it takes to win the basketball game. And so they were really focusing on that, so it wasn't a situation after the fact where we said we wish we would have. And they did take care of things, and we did win the ball game.
Who are some of the top individual performers against USI?
From our team?
Yeah.
I don't remember the scores off the top of my head, but I know that everyone contributed a great deal. Lindy Jones has been doing quite well for us, sticking the outside shots when we need them. When they pack the defense into paint, we don't have a real strong perimeter attack. We have Amy Hogan shooting from the outside, and Lindy also does a good job of penetrating for us. I thought that Kim Recker did a good job on the defensive end, along with Michelle Conley. If I could just take the best of each player and put them together, Jenny Newhart comes in and gets some very important rebounds for us. She's able to score for us. She did extremely well in scoring for us. Amy Perkins continues to take care of the basketball. I think she had a large number of assists that night. And looking inside, I see improvement with our team, things that we're adding to our game, both at the USI game and the Wesleyan game. That's encouraging to me. Maybe it's not something that's noticed by the fans, but with this young squad, it's very encouraging to me that for the remaining 7 games that we have, and for next year as well, having everybody back except Amy Hogan, it can only help us down the stretch.
They mentioned Amy Perkins. I know she's played the full 40 minutes, I think almost 4 or 5 games in a row. Is that ever starting to take its toll, or is it, or not?
Well, there's only one time that Amy Perkins asked to come out of the game as far as being fatigued, and at that particular time there was a timeout called, there was a foul called, some free throws taken and so forth, and only a few minutes left in the first half, and I left her in, and she didn't request it for a second time, and she seemed to do okay. As far as taking its toll, I know Amy Perkins loves to play basketball, and I know she's thrilled with the fact that last year she averaged about 5 minutes a game, and now she's playing 40. I think she loves the challenge. She loves the game so well. She's always working on her game. As far as physically taking the toll on Amy or the rest of the team, I do give my girls a lot of credit. I play, as I mentioned, maybe 7 people. 5 of them play a great deal. 2 people off the bench, share a little playing time with the guards in the post. We're playing up against teams who play as many as 12 kids and continually rotating people in. They can play harder, they can afford to foul more and take more chances on things. We're able to stick with them. We get up and down the court with them. I've seen times where the post play, and our opponent's post play, they're just in great need of some oxygen, and they get to come out of the game. My girls don't. They stay in there for 35 minutes. And Amy Perkins being one, being a little short at the point position, she has to play 40 minutes for us. And if she's not in foul trouble and doesn't ask to come out of the game, she generally just plays 40 minutes. Maybe another Steve Elford situation. He used to play a lot of minutes for Bob Knight. Now
you mentioned before how, I think you called it a barn ball game against USI. I know we talked before about whether or not you think teams maybe play a little bit more physical against you, knowing that you only have 6, 7 players that you go with. Do you think that's what happened Thursday, or was it just?
Well, I think USI's noted for their aggressive play. They do foul an awful lot, probably more so than any team in the conference. But they can afford to. Their strategy is go and play hard. If you foul, we have someone to come in for you. They have a lot of girls with 4 and 5 fouls, depending on any given night. In the past, we've shot as many as 46 free throws due to their physical defense. But on any other night, I'm not sure, how it may be.
Now then, Saturday you guys played Kentucky Wesleyan, and as you said earlier, won by 4. Now they came into the game shot real well, as opposed to Thursday when USI shot, like I said, 19% in the first half. Now, when you played them the first time, the game was also close. I think it was also a 4-point win. Did you approach the game any differently? Any things you wanted to do differently, having already played them one time?
We did make one change as we started the game the second time around. Down at Wesleyan, they just brought in 2 guards, Carey and Bond, both of which have transferred from Division I school. We're not quite acclimated to the program yet, didn't start for them yet, but did get a lot of playing time. Down there we thought we'd start out with a little bit of a matchup zone, considering the fact that they really didn't have an outside game, very similar to us. And unfortunately down there they came out and stuck a lot of short jumpers on us. So second half we were down by 7 at their place at the half. We came out in a lot more aggressive, just straight out man-to-man, 3/4 court pressing, and took a lead of 9 points and then won the game by 4. So our approach the second time around was forget the matchup zone. They have some shooters out there now. and they did, especially from the shorter range. They were, I think, 5 of 7 from three-point range against Ashland the 2 nights before. We realized that we'd have to be out there and respect the three-point shot. So we just played a straight-out man-to-man the entire game, a little pressing here and there to give them some trouble, and it proved beneficial for us.
Now, you guys also shot very well in that game, and I know the field goal, at least the percentages anyway, have been kind of up and down the last 5 or 6 games. Any particular reason for that? Any ways you could try to?
I think it all depends.
That you're looking to make a little more consistency.
I mean, it all depends if the foul is called or not. I really don't know what to say there. I think on different nights, especially when we're on the road, sometimes fatigue does set in. We just don't have the legs for some of the shots. It was real surprising to me that the other night with USI that we did miss the front end of 2 one-on-one situations at the line in the final seconds of the game, which really would have helped us out. It just didn't go down for us, so it's difficult to say.
Now you look again at the Wesley game. I guess you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but what were some of the key plays down toward the last 5-6 minutes of that game that helped you go over the edge and win a close one?
Well, we were certainly focusing on taking care of the basketball, and we wanted to execute our offense and look for the good shot. We didn't want to take a quick, long-range shot, result in a long rebound if we didn't make it. Our goal was to work the ball inside. Well, seconds were getting down, and their defense was totally overloading, and twice Amy Perkins got the basketball, reversed it, and was able to get the layup on one, and a short jumper on the other one, and the one was a real prayerful shot. If you remember, it kind of rolled off the rim and rolled back in. So, you know, Amy Perkins did score some key buckets at the end, and then when they came down with their three-point attempt, Lindy Jones came up with the rebound, was fouled, and got to go to the free throw line.
Now you mentioned Lindy Jones. She had 20 points each of those games. She had, I think the last home game was Kentucky State before that, when she had 36 points, or one of the last home games. Do you think she's been just feeling more confident as the season goes on?
I think so, and that's something I talked to her about just the other day. I told her, you know, Lindy, you're showing some good confidence in making some things happen for us. We need someone who's going to penetrate and look, you know, to dish it off inside or look for the basket themselves. And as well as she's shooting, you know, I want Lindy Jones taking those shots. You know, she makes a few mistakes in selecting some shots, but so does everyone else. And, you know, I'm pleased as far as her just being a freshman and the decisions that she's making. They're better. It used to be early in the season where I got a little nervous when Lindy was in the game toward the end because she made those mistakes, like not taking care of the basketball or just allowing herself to get flustered and maybe forced into making a mistake. And she has really matured in that area. You know, I don't feel that way any longer. I'm able to keep her in toward the end of the ball game.
Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break, then we'll come back and take a look ahead at next week's opponent.
Of top-ranked men's volleyball this weekend at IPFW. Tickets available at all Ticketmaster locations or call 481-6643.
Welcome back to Coach K's Corner. Now, Coach, this week you just had the one game, Ashland, on Saturday night at home. Now, you played them a couple weeks ago and lost by 5 up at their place. What happened in that game? That was about 3 weeks ago.
Yes, I remember it well. They came out first half and shot an incredible field goal percentage, and right before that, the weekend before that, I think they shot something like 31% and lost that weekend. And I was hoping, hey, maybe they won't shoot as well. But I think they worked on their shooting a great deal that week because they came out and made their first 6 shots. And I believe they only missed 1 or 2 field goal attempts in the first 10 minutes of play. So they were shooting quite well. We again started out with our matchup zone thinking that we plug up the inside because they have strong inside play with their Vetchu and Hall, both at the post position. But a little guard that we didn't think would do too much came out and made our first 3 baskets from a longer range. So we got down by as many as 18 points second half. Again, went to a full court man with a lot of double teaming, caught up and lost the game just by 5. And some, just some key breaks toward the end, things that just didn't go our way. It's something you have to keep in mind too, with the fact that I'm only playing 7 players, and 1 or 2 of them might be in foul trouble here or there. We can't full court press for an entire game. With about 10 minutes to go in the second half, we can apply some full court pressure if it's needed. And we've been successful with deficits as many as 18 and even in other games in making that comeback, but just not getting over the hump at the very end. I'm hoping the second time around, being at home, not having to travel, playing just 1 game this week, we'll have some fresh legs. I'll be able to get out there and really get after it from the get-go, with our man-to-man defense. And they have a good balanced scoring attack. They have 2 guards that are doing quite well, Grimes and Hiles from the outside, and then they have their post play inside that I mentioned. So it's going, we're going to have to extend our defense. It's going to be similar to defending a USI team.
Now they've added a player since then who some fans might be familiar with from another sport, Bobby Pugh, who was I think a 2-time all-conference volleyball player. She's all-American volleyball player last year. She's about 6'1", 6'2". They just added her a couple weeks ago. Now she didn't play against you last time, did she?
No, she did not.
And have you been able to get a look at her on film, or at least learn anything about what she adds to the team?
Well, unfortunately, we only trade 1 non-conference game film with the conference schools, and after that, we cannot do that. So we can't even share information over the telephone as coaches in the conference. So I basically have to go on the stats, and then looking at a few of her games, and considering the fact that she just joined the team and trying to learn the system, she did have 8 points and about 8 rebounds the other night. So she's a good athlete, and she's going to help them out. And I think they had her join the team because they did have a few key injuries, and they like to play a lot of people. Again, they're very physical and will rotate a lot of people in and out.
Do you think the week off will be helpful?
Most definitely. I really feel that after this past weekend, we have a lot of bruises on our bodies, as I mentioned, and I think having this week at home to just stay in our routine, going to classes and getting to bed at a decent hour will certainly help us.
Okay, now that you're about 2/3 of the way through the season, you got about 7 games left. What are some of your goals for these last 7 games? First for the team, and then maybe some individual goals for certain players.
Well, right now we are tied in the conference with Ashland, and an immediate goal of ours is to move a notch up above them, and then Lewis is right in there as well. And it's really going to go down to the wire with the remaining 7 games as to who finishes there in the middle of the pack of the conference, and that's our goal. Bellarmine with just 1 loss in the conference, and Indianapolis, I believe now with just 2. They're right up there and almost untouchable. It would be great if we could win the remaining of our 7 games. No one would have thought last year that we would win the 6 remaining games of the season. It's going to be a hard-fought battle, that's for sure. But our immediate goal as a team is to move up a notch or 2 in the conference and finish a little higher than where we are, since we were so close with some of the other teams. Individually, I'm just looking for improvement on a daily basis. Our post-play getting better, our freshmen gaining more experience and improving in their fundamental skills. It's nice when the kids can go in and get career highs, scoring, assists, rebounds, and that sort of thing. But basically just looking for the individual improvement on their fundamental skills so that it carries over for next year.
And like you said, carrying over for next year, any other things that you're looking to do, either individual things or maybe some strategy or different approaches to the game that you might carry over toward next season?
Well, one thing for certain, we're going to have a bigger bench. And we're bringing a large recruiting class this year with some quickness. And I certainly hope to get back to that style of defensive play that I like, where we can apply more full court pressure. We can afford to upgrade the intensity a little bit and get some subs in to get some rest for the individuals. I'm hoping to add that back. Again, I'd like to pick up the tempo a little bit. We've had to slow the ball down just a little bit so that we had control of the basketball game and use the 30 seconds as much as possible. And to draw fouls as well, make the make the defense play defense a little bit longer, and that gives us a little rest when we're on offense. And so I'm hoping to pick things up a little bit with a little more depth and play more people, of course.
Now, one thing that that you do at some points during the season is that I think some people might not realize is recruiting. That it just doesn't take place after the season or before the season. There's also some that goes on during the season. How much recruiting do you do during the season, and what are some of the NCAA restrictions? Have you got certain times when you can't do anything, certain times you can call, or what are some of those restrictions during during your season?
It all starts out you cannot write an individual a letter of any sort until they're a junior. Can't send them media guides and that sort of thing. Once they become a senior, or a month before school starts, you're allowed to make phone calls to seniors only, and that is limited to once a week. So you have to kind of keep record of that. And meanwhile, you can call coaches and so forth, and that includes family members too. So we generally have senior prospects, come visit our campus throughout the season. Early in September, early October, I go out and make home visits, school visits. It's a contact period where I can talk to a prospect face-to-face. That's limited to 3 times for the whole year. And then throughout the season, I'm allowed to go out and watch prospects play as often as I like, each player 4 times only, but there's no limitation as far as the calendar goes. In Division I, there are only certain parts of the month that you can go out and watch a high school game. Division II, it's unlimited. It's from the beginning of the season until the end of the season, so I'm out throughout our season watching a lot of high school basketball games. For those schools that are farther away, we have a number of films sent to us by coaches and prospects as well. So it is a continuous thing. I look to sign as many kids as I can early in the fall, and then a few more in the spring.
Do you get a lot of kids contacting you then, sending you tapes and saying, hey, I'd like to come play at IPFW or play at the Division II level?
A great deal, and probably this year more so than any. We've had a number of players and parents contact us by telephone, not just letter, wanting to come to our games, wanting to talk with me or meet some of the players after the game. And that's very encouraging because a lot of these players are high caliber players, good ball players. And to know that they're interested in our program is quite pleasing.
Do you think a lot of that is because of the success you had last year going to the NCAA tournament? Kind of got a little word out in the area?
I think that it had a lot to do with it, and maybe they also see that we need help. From this year, that we need some players. I think they definitely see an opportunity there.
Now, when you were at some of your Division I schools, especially Vanderbilt, you managed to land, some of the top players in the country. But obviously Vanderbilt's a top Division I program. What are some of the differences between recruiting at the Division II level and the Division I level that you've seen so far?
Well, I would say that Division II level is certainly there's much more of a regional base in your recruiting. Basically the state of Indiana, and then I can even narrow that down to almost the northern part of Indiana, that you do more of your recruiting because there is enough talent in our region to do that. Recruiting on a Division I level is a little bit different because you're flying from east to west coast. Of course, you have the budget to do that. And I think having a full ride scholarship to offer someone at Division I level is a little more enticing too.
Do you ever see difficulty with kids wanting to go to a Division I school only because it's a Division I school? Even if a lot of kids end up going to D1, they'll play 5-6 minutes a game, end up transferring to a Division II where they can play 35 minutes and maybe be all conference. But do you see when you go to talk to a kid and there's Division I schools looking at him or her, do you see sometimes that they just get that Division I in their head and that's where they want to go?
I think that happens an awful lot, and I recognize that right away if I'm recruiting a prospect who's looking at a small Division I school. Many times I've played against that as a coach or coached against that program, and I have a real good idea of what they have to offer as far as game management and so forth goes, and what kind of gymnasium they play in, travel arrangements and so forth. When it comes to a small Division I school, I think IPFW has more to offer. We have bigger crowds with the doubleheaders with the men. We travel very well. We have a talk show like this. We have our games televised. There are a lot of pluses that we have here at the IPFW that small Division I schools do not have. You know, and it goes back to the media guides and the stat system that you put out. The support staff that we have, the full-time people involved in the athletic department, is above and beyond some of the things that smaller Division I schools have. And I do try to make that clear to a prospect that they could maybe attain higher goals. Take Elisa Miller, for instance. I'm not sure if she had gone to some small Division I school if she would have been top 10 in the country, All-American. We know it's very competitive. But yet here at IPFW Division II, she was able to attain that goal and become Player of the Year for the conference and so forth. There are a lot of goals that you can reach as an individual. Chances of going to an NCAA tournament are much greater at a higher level Division II school as compared to a small Division I. So I try to make those comparisons, but yet in the end, there are those prospects who have the idea of, hey, Division I, full ride scholarship, I just want to play and have a free education.
What are some of the other just overall biggest challenges you face when you see a player and you're really interested in that player, you want them to come to IPFW? What are some of the biggest obstacles in getting that accomplished?
Well, competition, of course. Whoever else may be recruiting them. I feel very comfortable in recruiting players within this area who may be considering some of our other conference schools. I think our facilities are one of the finest in the country, not in the country, in our conference, our weight room and so forth, and our gymnasium. The fact that, as I mentioned, we have full-time staff in many of the areas within the athletic department certainly helps what we can do for our program and how we represent ourselves at the games and so forth. Probably the biggest drawback, maybe the most difficult area, would be the scholarship dollars that you're able to offer someone. But this year I've been quite pleased in recruiting quite a few of the players. It appears that money is maybe toward the end as far as priorities go, and that's encouraging to me. They're looking at the quality of education that they can get with an IU or Purdue degree. They're looking at the program and the opportunities for them to play and to do well individually and to do well as a team, perhaps go to the NCAA tournament. They like our players. They like the people they've met on staff. They like our facilities. And if I can help them just a little bit with some scholarship dollars, things were looking pretty good for us this year.
Okay. I'd like to remind everyone the women's team will be in action just one game this week when they'll face Ashland Saturday night at the Gates Center at 6 o'clock. Hello and welcome to Coach K's Corner. I'm Dave Hilbert, IPFW Sports Information Director. Eileen, you guys had just a one game last week, conference game at home, a win over Ashland. Last time Ashland defeated, I think, 5 points at their place. This time around, kind of a fairly easy win here at IPFW.
Yes, Dave, I was quite pleased with our game. There are several things probably that factored in the difference in the game at their place a few weeks ago and the one we just played last Saturday. One, for instance, would be the press that they used the first time we played them. We had a lot of difficulty with that, and unfortunately it resulted in a lot of steals and layups, and that was certainly a goal of ours this time, to do a better job with the press, to show a little bit more patience, and to just take care of the basketball and get through the press, go down and set up our offense, and make them play defense a little bit longer. Another thing too, Dawn Dressler was not able to play the first time we played them due to a death in the family. So we had her back, and she had a lot of good things for us too. Yeah, here you see their press. This is the same press they used against us at their place, the 1-2-1-1. And as you can see, we're demonstrating a little bit of patience here and getting through the press and getting our offense set up. And our goal was to run some good offense. Jenny had a good game, as you see here, coming off the bench, and Amy Perkins was able to get the ball inside to her, and she ended up with 8 assists on Saturday. It helped us out a great deal. Jenny Newhart, as you just saw scoring there, ended up with 16 points for us coming off the bench, and she does a good job with that, coming in and making some things happen for us on defense and getting some key rebounds and scoring for us too.
Now you had a lot. I know you said you had a lot of. Well, take a look at.
Here's another clip. Kim Recker had an outstanding game. She played 38 minutes. She had some block shots and some deflections, and scored quite well for us here. I think here you're going to see a steal or deflection on her part. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, she's made some things happen for us. She ended up with 16 points and had some incredible plays for us. Some that worked real well. As she has a tip in later on in the second half. Got some key rebounds for us, especially offensive rebounds. That's something that we really have focused on this year, is to try to get a little more on the offensive end and get some second shots.
She's picked up or improved her rebounding numbers lately. I know the last couple of games she'd been down 4, 3, 2, but last game she had 8 against Ashland. The game before that I think she had 7. Is that something you're really looking for her as the post player?
Right. That's something that I've been stressing throughout the conference play. Dawn Dressler being 5'8", 5'9" at best, being our leading rebounder and actually being 9th in the conference as a 3-guard, shouldn't be. Our post players should be our leading rebounders. And between Jenny Newhart, Michelle Conley, and Kim Recker, I expect one of them to step up and to do that for us, especially in the offensive boards. Oftentimes we get one shot, and if we don't make it, then we're going down the other end playing defense. And that's something we've had to do a better job of, getting more shots, second and third shot opportunities. And I felt we did get quite a few offensive boards against Ashland this time, and that was another difference. They
mentioned the tip-in that she had before, and that was a play you don't see a whole lot in the women's game. Could you describe a little what happened?
Well, Kim Recker has been playing around with the tip-in throughout the year, especially at practice, and I've told her if she makes it, it's okay. If not, she should be just taking a regular shot. Here you see a block shot by Kim Recker. She had, I believe, 3 in this game, and we're going to take it down, and Amy Perkins, I believe in this series, is going to convert for us from the right side here. One thing good about Amy Perkins is that she pops out on that wing and gets the basketball. If there's room for her, she's going, and she's going to take it to the hole and score for us. An off-balance shot, and she's still able to convert on that.
Now she didn't start the year scoring very much. I know last couple of years she didn't get a lot of playing time, didn't get a lot of points, but even early this year when she was playing the majority of the game, didn't get a lot of points. Lately though, she's been starting to score a little more. Are you looking for, does that help her passing game also?
Well, it helps the entire team actually. Early on, when Amy really wasn't much of a scoring threat, our opponents would just lay off of her, use that defensive player to perhaps plug up the paint and take away passes to the inside game and just leave Amy out there by herself. And I've talked to her about that, and I told Amy, I said, we need to get at least 6 or 7 points out of you per game on an average. And she's had games of 16 points, 11 points, a couple of times. She's been in double digits. But as she gains more experience and feels more comfortable with things, and as we've gone along here, she is becoming much more of a scoring threat for us.
And how's her overall game progressed? I know when the season started, she kind of got tossed into that role that you really probably weren't expecting her to be in when the season started. But as the season wore along, she ended up being the starting point guard. How has her play progressed to this point?
Well, I think she's come along quite well. Maybe one of Amy Perkins' weaknesses from last year would have been that many times teams would double team her and steal the basketball. Amy has really improved her ball handling, and she's able to handle that pressure quite well. She does have to play for 40 minutes, so she certainly has the endurance to do that. Amy Perkins is thought by many people to be somewhat quiet, but yet on the court she really has begun to vocalize a little bit, and I appreciate that about her. She's a silent leader, but she does lead and get things going for our offenses and the special plays that we want to run, and she's just matured in so many ways, and I would say ball handling will probably be the #1 she's really improved on.
Now your team, as a team, has shot better last couple of games. Shot 48% against Ashland, 48% the game before. Any particular reasons? Is it the opposition that you're playing, or are you guys just taking better shots?
Well, well, here you go. See another clip. I believe Amy Hogan will be shooting here from the wing and scoring, and she's fouled on that shot, and that was just 35 seconds before we went in for the halftime and put us up by 9 points. While we're talking about Amy, I just go on to say that she had a very good game for us. Ashland zoned us most of the game, and we're not well known as a perimeter shooting team, and if we were going to be, Amy Hogan has to be shooting quite well. You know, Lindy Jones does come in and help us from the perimeter at different times. Amy was fortunate to have a good night. She worked real hard. She was 5 of 7 from the field and made the free throw after the foul that you had just seen, and did real well for us and played a lot of minutes. And I would have to say that Amy Hogan's experience really was evident in this game, and just making good decisions and taking care of the basketball and doing what we had to do to win the game.
Now this is something I know we talked about at least once before, I think a couple weeks ago, but the fact that you don't have the one big scorer like you have the past, or since you've been here last year with Lisa Miller scoring almost 30 points a game. This year you've had 7 different players be the team's high scorer at one point or another. Does it take some of the pressure off each individual player, knowing that they don't have to go out there and score 20, 25 points on a given night?
I think so, and I also believe that it makes it difficult for our opponents because they can't key in on just 1 or 2 players. They're going to look through the statistics and they're going to see that Kim Recker had a night of 20 points and Dawn Dressler had a night of 20, and you can go through the entire lineup and they've all have taken turns of scoring at least 15 points or more.
Okay, now this week you've got 2 games on the road at Kentucky State Thursday, then over to Bellarmine on Saturday. Now Kentucky State's team you've handled fairly easily last 3 times, posted some big wins over them, won by about 40 or 50 back here at our place a couple of weeks ago. How are you guys approaching this game?
We approach every conference game, I guess, in the same fashion. It is a conference game. It's very important. We are going to be on the road. We do have to travel that day, and our plans are to go down there and take care of business with the Kentucky State before we even begin to think about Bellarmine. Bellarmine will be a hard-fought game for sure. They're second in the conference right now and doing quite well, and we're just going to, as I mentioned, focus on one game at a time and go down there and just give it our best shot.
Now getting back to the Kentucky State game, and toward the end of the Kentucky State game, it was basically a blowout, the big scoring margin toward the end, but they started hitting a lot of 3-point shots, a lot of outside shots toward the end of the game. Is that something you think they might try to do from the outset this time?
I think that they'll certainly attack our defense a little more from the perimeter than they did our last game, or I should say the first half of our last game. They did come out in the final 10 minutes of the game and scored quite a few longer range shots. However, if you look at their statistics, they don't show that they have someone who consistently shoots from out there, but on any given night, anything can happen. Another concern that I have would be with their quickness. They did drive to the basket quite well, and that was something that I was not satisfied with as far as defending the drive and getting good help side.
Now, they also had a player last year, that Maury Arvey, or not last year, last time you played him, who was, I think, got on the bus the day before they left for the game, hadn't played before, he knew nothing about her. She ended up having a big game, 24 points. Now that you've had a chance to see her play and concentrate on her, is she going to be a little bit less of a surprise?
I would say so, and we did know that in the game on Thursday night, that we knew that she did score quite a few points, and we were prepared in knowing who she was and that she was capable of scoring and she was capable of shooting the longer range shots. So we were somewhat prepared as far as defense, but it's always different when a player gets out on the floor, seeing them for the first time and then just having to make the adjustments.
Now, you should get you'd think an opportunity to maybe get to rest some of the players in this game coming up. Is that something you're looking forward to doing on Thursday?
I really
Hopefully.
haven't even thought about resting players. I'm only thinking about playing with those that I need to win the basketball game, and if rest is included, then so be it.
Then Bellarmine, you've got Saturday down at their place. I know it's one of the tougher places, especially in women's basketball, to win in this league. Last time we played them here, lost by just 3 points. Kind of things you're going to have to do to beat this team, especially down at their place.
Well, Bellarmine will be a very difficult team to defend. They have 3 very good three-point shooters. They're doing quite well as a team from three-point range. They're in the mid-40s. As far as field goal percentage is concerned. And then on top of that, they have a very good inside game. You know, they have Renee Kahowitz, a senior post player who's doing quite well, and she's very difficult to defend. You know, in the paint, she's going to post you up for as long as the officials allow her to stay in the lane, which seems to be quite often or quite long. And then you've got to extend your defense too to cover the three-point shooting. I felt last time we played them, we did a good job in taking away their three-point shot. I think they were averaging maybe 13 to 15 three-point shot attempts per game, and we held them to just 6 or 7. They only made maybe 1 or 2 of those. So we did take that away, and I'm hoping that we can do the same, you know, down at Bellarmine as far as defending the three-point shot. And then we just need to do a better job of taking away the inside game with Kahowitz, and perhaps you know, doing a better job too of boxing out and not giving them second shot opportunities. And then it all depends on how well they're shooting that night and how well we're shooting, how often both teams get to go to the free throw line. All those things factor in.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take a little bit more of a look at the Bellarmine game and a look ahead to some other games coming up. Well, welcome back to Coach K's Corner. Now, Coach, we're talking about the Bellarmine game coming up. Now, last time you guys played them, look at the stat sheet. You guys shot 50%, one of your better shooting nights from the floor. You out-rebounded them by a couple, but you committed just a few more turnovers and ended up with a 3-point loss. What were some of the keys to that loss?
Oh, I believe second half, we just did not do a good job of taking care of the basketball. Bellarmine struggled the first half. Their shots weren't falling in, and we were, you know, just giving them one shot and coming up with the rebound. And fortunately, we were shooting quite well. And they just could not get things to click. They were substituting quite frequently and trying to get something to gel first half. Second half, they came out, made some adjustments at halftime, probably focused on just playing together as a team and to get things going for them. And they did do that. They came out and played a very intense, aggressive defense, and we allowed them to change the tempo on us. And rather than coming out ourselves and taking care of things and controlling the tempo, we allowed them to change things for us. And they did take the lead. I think they led by as many as 9 points. And we were able to come back and only lose by 3. And that was, however, on a shot made at the buzzer, a 3-point shot made by Amy Hogan, so we were down by 6 with just about 3 seconds left in the game. I think it's going to depend a lot on shooting percentages, and they are, I'm certain, and we're preparing for a lot of pressure, full court pressure, half court pressure. I'm sure they'll come out a little more determined, wanting to do a better job than they did last time with us, first half especially.
What is it about playing at Bellarmine? I think Bellarmine and St. Joe are probably considered the 2 toughest places to play, these on the women's side of the GOVC. What is it about their place that makes it so difficult? There's just the fact that they always have an outstanding team.
Well, they have a very good ball club. I really can't answer that. I don't know what it is about playing at certain places that people say it's difficult to play there. When I came here as a new coach, I was told it's difficult to play at St. Joe's. I know they have a nice crowd there, and I would think our team feeds off of that. I disagree. The last 2 games at St. Joe's, our kids played very well. We won 1 of the 2, And as a coach, I felt quite comfortable there. It's a well-lit gymnasium, a lot of crowd. It's a really good atmosphere to play in. And I think that the same kind of atmosphere could be found down at Bellarmine, and that we should be able to play just as well and not let outside factors influence us.
Now take a look at the GLVC race for a minute. First of all, IPFW. I know you're 5 and 7. I've got right now in 6th place. Got a chance at finishing in the top half of the conference. Northern Kentucky's up there with 7 losses. The Northern Kentucky team that has only lost 5-6 conference games the last 2 years. Do you think is that a realistic goal you're shooting for, to finish in the top 5?
We would like to. As I mentioned earlier, we're taking things just one game at a time. We did move up 2 notches this past week. We have some difficult ball games to play yet, and every game's important, and anything can happen until the very end, because there are so many of us at this point neck and neck right there in the middle of the pack. Northern Kentucky, ourselves, Ashland, Lewis University, and Kentucky Wesleyan could even sneak back in there. So there are 3 or 4 of us fighting for that 5th spot, 6th spot in the conference, and it would be quite pleasing to finish 5th. We'll have to play some good basketball and win a lot of our remaining games.
Now looking at the top of the league, you've got Indianapolis with only 2 losses overall, then Bellarmine, St. Joe, USI. You've had a chance to play all those teams. Who do you see as the team to beat right now?
Well, I think most definitely Indianapolis is the team to beat, and that was a team that I selected as a preseason pick for first in the conference. Everyone was returning this year, and they have a good inside game, a good outside game. They have good quickness, and they're coached quite well. And they just entered the top 20 poll, national poll. I believe they are ranked 20th. And I think they're the team to beat in our conference, most definitely.
Well, take a look at injuries for a while. I know it's one thing that's you've had to deal with this year, but I know you're talking with one of the coaches in the league who's calling around to see what kind of injury problems some of the other teams in the league have had. Have you seen an increase in injuries overall, and if so, what type of injuries?
I can't say that I've seen an increase. I know Ashland has 2 players that are out for the season with knee injuries, I believe. Our only injury this year would be that of Pam Edwards, who had a rupture of the Achilles tendon and had to have surgery, so she has been out the entire season, and we're hoping to have her back next year. I really can't pinpoint too many teams in the conference having a great deal of injuries this year as far as ending their season for them.
What are some of the most common types of injuries that you get in basketball, and specifically women's basketball?
I would guess, the most common, not just with my experience here at IPFW in this conference, but even over the years, and my last 12 years of coaching, in women, knee injuries seem to be almost #1. And they claim that's because of anatomical structure of the female, having wider hips and more pressure on the knees.
What types of methods of prevention are there? And have there been improvements in that area, both in terms of maybe your preseason conditioning and in dealing with an injury that already exists?
Well, I think a lot of things factor in. #1 that I believe in, anyhow, would be the weight conditioning. We do a lot of work in the weight room during the summer and preseason, and work on the weights very, very hard right up until the season starts. And then after season starts, of course, we only are able to lift maybe once or twice, if that, to maintain what we have. Being in good condition, not carrying around too much extra weight, and as I mentioned, because of our structure as females, that can only hinder you. And I think, too, the wear and tear on the body. If you're practicing 2.5, 3 hours a day where you're just drilling the kids and just running continuously, a player has to play 40 minutes, both at practice and in games. I think that also has a lot to do with it, too. And a lot of other things, Dave, can factor in. How much rest are you getting? Do you go to practice tired? Injuries can result many times in just from fatigue. And fortunately, we've been real blessed this year. We've only had the one injury, an unfortunate one with Pam Edwards, but being that we only have 8 players that we dress right now, we've been very fortunate, knock on wood, that we haven't had any injuries that have not allowed someone to play for us this year.
Now, Saturday you guys also had, in addition to your game, had an alumni game in the afternoon. What I think that's about the fourth, fifth year in a row that they've handled. That's the second year they've done it since you were here. How do those games and some of the other things that you do benefit the program in general?
Well, it's always nice to have, your alumni come back, and I think that they're excited to be able to come back and play basketball again. I remember my playing days, and when they were over, you're kind of had a missing place there. Something was missing in your life, it seemed, because you loved to play basketball so much, and to have the opportunity to come back and to compete in an organized fashion, with the score clock and with officials and with some fans, and we even had statistics that day. It's always good, too, for public relations to have people come back on our campus. And I told our present players, I said, I do expect you to see some of the basketball game. You will be preparing for our game, but I want you to come down and support the ladies, because they are the pioneers of our program, and they played here for 4 years and helped our program come along, and they deserve our support. And I really want to establish a good rapport with our graduates. I want them to feel free to come back and compete, and not just to come back and play in the alumni game, but to come back to our games and support us as either Royal Don members or just to be in the stands, and feel free to come up and talk to me at any time and feel a part of our program still.
Now you guys have, or your team has put on some other types of external type events. I know you've done some clinics, held some camps, that type of thing. What are some of the things that you've done, and do you have any other future plans as external events that you'd like to put on?
One thing we did do this year, this past fall, we went to the State Development Center right across the street and invited all the Special Olympian basketball programs in the region on a Saturday, where we held a clinic. All of our players taught stations. We had a remarkable turnout. I believe we had about 75 participants. And we also had the Civitan group provide refreshments, and we had an awards ceremony. They also took photographs of each participant by themselves with the team. They were quite proud of the pictures, and it really was heartwarming for our players to have the opportunity to go out there and just offer something that they have, the talent they have, their skills in basketball, and to teach these young individuals who aren't quite as fortunate or aren't blessed with the skills that our players have, to teach them some of the basketball skills. We taught them quite a few fundamentals that day. We also did a scrimmage that day, and we gave them an IPFW miniature basketball as a souvenir, and it was really rewarding. I like to do community services as such, so that our players have an opportunity to see other people in different situations, and many times too, they can count their blessings, realizing that the talent that they have and the abilities that they have, and to be able to compete in a college level. And some other people just aren't quite as fortunate. I'd like to visit the Children's Hospital yet this spring. Last fall we did a few things to help out with the community. We always have junior high teams, CYO teams coming to our games and wanting to meet with our players afterwards, and we have an autograph session afterwards, and so we get a lot of opportunities to work with the public. And I don't want to exhaust our team. We have to go to class too and play basketball, but it is good for all of us to just get out and get involved in different ways.
Now you also do a lot of other things with your team. I know you have some various awards that you give throughout the year, throughout the week, at the end of the year. What are some of those things, and how does that help the team, just overall cohesiveness? Well,
as a coach, you try to motivate your players. We have always talked about wanting to do well academically, and I felt as a coach, well, perhaps we need a little motivation there, maybe a reward system of some sort. This year we've come up with the idea that we'd like to name Students of the Week. On a weekly basis, they fill out a form and they tell us exactly what they did that week. And there are different categories, and how they scored in a quiz, how they scored in a test or a paper or a project. Maybe they've raised a grade here or there. If they've attended classes, 100% attendance, which they should always mark yes. There are some other categories there too, just can't remember them off the top of my head, but we'll take those forms and review them, and we'll select 3 or 4 individuals for that week who are considered to be our Students of the Week, and then we carry it on to name Students of the Semester and reward them with a t-shirt. And then at the end of the year we will select a Student Athlete of the Year, and we have a nice Bar Hill plaque that we'll award, and one name will go on that annually. along with that, we have another award that I started last year. It's called the Lisa Miller Coaches Award. It's basically a mental attitude award given to someone who is just a very well-rounded student athlete, has a very good attitude, offers themselves to the community, has good rapport on campus, does well in the classroom, and is, as I mentioned, very, very coachable and just adds a lot to the team. So I try to put a few things in there, and I have a lot of other little gimmicks that I use to try to motivate the team and not just focus on basketball practice every day and going to games, but to have some other things that make it more enjoyable.
Okay. Coach, I'd like to wish you good luck on the road trip this week. I'd like to remind everyone the team will be out of town this week, but we'll be back in action at home the following week, the 25th against St. Joe and the 27th against Lewis.
Catch all the action of top-ranked men's volleyball this weekend at IPFW. Tickets available at all Ticketmaster locations or call 481-6643.
No.
Hello and welcome to Coach K's Corner. I'm Dave Hilbert, IPFW Sports Information Director. This week we've got a special guest with us, IPFW two-time All-American Lisa Miller. Lisa's this week in the game Thursday against St. Joe. At halftime of the men's game is going to have her jersey retired. She'll be the first IPFW. What was the process of getting this done, and when did it start?
Well, last year at the conclusion of the season, actually throughout the season, different people had mentioned, wouldn't it be nice if they retired Lisa Miller's jersey? She certainly is deserving of it, and I said, I agreed. I said that would be a great honor. and I think she's deserving of it as well. So I spoke to our faculty representative, Bob Barrett, and Arnie Ball about it, and they came up with the criteria along with Chancellor Lance, what it would take to have your jersey retired, and they came up with a jersey retirement program, as I mentioned, with a list of criteria. And I just presented a letter requesting that they review Lisa's accomplishments and to see if she would be eligible then to have her jersey retired. And it was unanimous, and they decided then to do it sometime during the season. One of the rulings stated too was that you had to have graduated, or you had to have completed your 4 years. And with Lisa's student teaching until the end of December, we wanted to wait until January or after, especially during conference play, so that we could have a nice crowd at the games when we presented her award.
Do you know what the criteria are?
I know a few off the top of my head. One of them is that you must be named Player of the Week in the conference. Kind of caught me for a loop there. You have to maintain a good GPA in the classroom. Several different honors, NCAA statistics, national statistics, having perhaps been a major contributor in your team's success and taking you to perhaps the NCAA tournament. And I'm saying this in general terms because it's not just applicable to basketball, be any sport. To be voted in the nation as one of the top players, as Lisa was, in a Kodak All-American, top 10 in the nation, and several other things. You needed to, I think, accomplish 5 or 6 of the 12 listed.
And then you nominated by the coach?
The coach nominates to the committee, and then they decide whether or not, and the chancellor's involved as well.
Now, Lisa, how did you find out for the first time that you were going to have your jersey retired?
Well, actually, I was really surprised about it. The team and coach told me at one of the practices, and it is really a great honor. And I just, the good Lord has blessed me with so many things, including the support of my teammates and my coach and the athletic department, the administration, and the faculty here at IPFW.
What are, in addition to this, and with all the honors you've won, what are some of the ones that you are most proud of?
I probably have to definitely say the All-American award that I was given last year, presented to last year. As far as the individual accomplishment is the GLVC Player of the Year. But I can say probably more importantly the team accomplishment that we had last year, and over my 4 years here going to the NCAA tournament probably had to be the most exciting for me.
Now, looking back at your whole career here, what were some of the most memorable moments?
The one that comes to mind again is the NCAA tournaments, both my sophomore year and my senior year, playing especially at Kansas, our final year. Even though we lost down there, I think it was a good experience meeting different people and the people that went along with us, and it was almost like a family type situation that we went down there with, and we all worked real hard, but we came up short there. Another memorable moment I can remember is the St. Joe game. It sticks out in my mind that it was our last regular season game, and we were real happy to come out with a win there.
You only got to have Lisa as a player for 1 year, but what were some of the things you remember most about her, some of her accomplishments?
Her ability to score and rebound in critical moments and throughout the season. I feel very privileged and honored to have had the opportunity to coach Lisa for at least 1 year. Probably would have been better maybe to not have had her at all, because it makes me only wish that I could have had her for 4 full years. But Lisa certainly is the epitome of a student athlete, and I just remember most, and even this year, as she helps us out as a student assistant and practices with us every day at our practices, her work ethic is incredible. Even at practice, as I mentioned, her intensity is still there. She's all over the floor, and she really is a good role model for our athletes still today.
Now, you were here for 4 years. What types of changes have you seen in the program in general from the time you first came in and until now?
There's been a lot of changes in the program, I think, and all of them for the better. Coming in my freshman year and going through my senior year, I noticed a lot more support from the fans and a lot more support just from the administration and IPFW. And I still see it now, even this year. The administration really supports our girls program and all the sports programs at IPFW. I think the intensity level has picked up since the beginning of my freshman year until now. And I think that has a good part to do with the coaching and just some of the athletes that are in here now, that they all have positive attitudes and are willing to work extremely hard. And I think some of that has to do with the success we've had over the past couple of years and their desire to maybe get back to the NCAA tournament or perhaps win a conference championship in the next couple of years.
What were some of the biggest obstacles or adjustments that you faced coming in to college 4 years ago as a freshman?
It was a difficult adjustment, but I really had no problems. I think as far as in the game, it was a lot more physical in the game, and we were on a weightlifting program starting my freshman year, which in high school I lifted some weights, but not on an extensive program like we were on as my freshman year. And as I went on, perhaps my senior year was the biggest change as far as the weightlifting, because we became even on a more intense program, weightlifting program, and the game is so physical. I think that's very important. As far as coming in here as a freshman, academically, things changed a little bit. The classes are harder and you spend more time working on your homework, and it's really important that you have the time management skill, and that's one of the things I think I developed over the 4 years.
As a coach, what are some of the biggest adjustments that you think players have to go through, just from the things you've seen during your career?
Probably time management, and that's probably their number one answer. When they come to college, they only have a class perhaps a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Tuesday, Thursday, and have all this free time. Maybe they won't even have a class on a particular day, and instead of managing their time going to the library or reading the materials that they need to read, they may decide to go shopping or watch a movie. Time management would be, a number one answer there. And then I think, too, the intensity of practices, the length of practices, the weightlifting that Lisa mentioned, just making an adjustment with all of those things. Traveling, would be another area where they'd have to adjust. Being on the road, missing a few classes, having to make up, getting notes from different people. And as Lisa mentioned, too, I think that there's a lot more involved in the academic area as well for the athletes. There's a lot more reading to be done, and different ways to take tests, and many, many more papers to write and projects to do.
How difficult do you think it is for some of the players to come? Because most of the people come into the program are one of the top 2 or 3 players on their team. Now they come in high school, now they come here to college, and their whole team are players who are one of the best players on their team. How difficult is that for some of the players, just the ones that you've seen over the years?
I think it varies depending on the individual. Some players come into the program knowing that perhaps they're going to have to pay their dues as a freshman and work themselves into the program, and may not contribute a great deal into their sophomore, junior years. And I think, too, especially when I recruit, I tell athletes, I have so many seniors, they'll be here your freshman year, but then they'll be leaving, and I'll need someone to step in to fill that role, and I'm hoping that you can do that for us. I never tell a recruit that they're going to start. I always say there's an opportunity for you to start, and I don't have a problem starting a freshman. Lindy Jones starts for us this year and is doing a very, very good job. But I try to be careful as a coach not to make promises as I recruit them. And some athletes are able to handle the fact that they don't play an awful lot, and others aren't. And I think, too, that's true across the nation. When you look at a team like Tennessee, they have 15 people on the team and maybe play 8 or 9 players, and 4 or 5 sit the bench the entire year, yet they're content to be a part of a great program. They're content to make an appearance at the Final Four tournament, to have a Final Four ring on their finger. So it all depends on the individual.
Now, when you came into the program, you pretty much jumped right in from high school to being a starter all 4 years. Did that put any extra pressure on you, being a freshman coming in, all of a sudden starting?
I don't think it put any extra pressure in. Coming in as a freshman, I did have the opportunity to start, and at that time we didn't have any seniors on the team. We did have quite a few upperclassmen, though, 2 or 3 juniors and a very big sophomore class, and so I was put in the position for an opportunity to start. And going in, I maybe was a little intimidated, maybe thinking that maybe that's not what they needed me for. They maybe needed me to come off the bench, but I talked to Coach Rosinski at that time, and she thought that was my role, to come in and be a scorer and a rebounder, and I accepted that role and did the best job I could. And I think everything worked out, for me, and I got a lot of confidence that freshman year, and from there on I felt more confidence because I was able to come in as a freshman and start for them.
And now that you're done playing, you've been working as a student assistant, helping out with the team in practice and the games. How do you like that?
Oh, I think it's great. This gives me another year to play, and there's so many times at practice that I wish I could play in the game, but a college athlete only gets 4 years. But I can't complain at all because I get to practice every day, and it's been a good opportunity for me to keep in shape. And hopefully, like Coach mentioned, some of the girls can see me playing and maybe pick up some things that I do, or maybe just my intensity or my work ethic and help them out. I might get a chance to guard Lindy a lot during practices, and hopefully that will help her out. I learn a lot from her, and I hope it goes both ways. So I just see it as an opportunity for me to play, an extra year.
Now, how does it help you and your team, having Lisa around in practice and being able to actually play during practice?
Well, I certainly think, as she mentioned, it helps the players that we have now. She does play on the second team, and oftentimes when we're reviewing an opponent, her team will serve as a scout team and run the offenses and so forth. And it's also a real plus that Lisa knows all of our offenses. She knows all of our inbounds plays. So in joining the other girls as part of the team, we can scrimmage quite easily, and she doesn't have to be taught everything because she knows the program very well. And as she mentioned, Lindy Jones having to guard her every day at practice, it can do nothing but help Lindy. If some of Lisa's skills can rub off, or just some of the experience in making good decisions on the court, can only benefit Lindy down the stretch.
Like I said, Lindy, I think, is what, 4th or 5th in the league in steals this year. I think that's having to guard Lisa every day has helped.
Most definitely. And I'm very pleased with that statistic. That was one statistic last year that we did not have anyone in the top 10 in the conference. And I challenged the girls. I said someone needs to, be among the top 10 in steals. And I'm real pleased that Lindy has done that.
Is coaching something you'd like to pursue, either as full-time or a part-time during your career?
I think maybe possibly in the future. Right now I'm doing a lot of subbing for the Fort Wayne Community Schools and some of the Catholic schools, and I'm really enjoying that, and hopefully through teaching, a coaching position will come about. And coaching at the college level right now, I have really enjoyed that, and I think it takes a special person to be able to coach at the college level, dealing with so many 12 or 14 personalities, and knowing your basketball skills so well, and that takes a very special person. And if the opportunity arises for me to ever be an assistant coach, or maybe a grade school coach, I would definitely look at the opportunity.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll take a look at last week's games and a look ahead at this week's home games.
Catch all the action of top-ranked men's volleyball this weekend at IPFW. Tickets available at all Ticketmaster locations, or call 481-6643.
Welcome back to Coach K's Corner. Coach, you guys had a couple of conference games last week. One big on Thursday against Kentucky State, lost at Bellarmine. How important is it to the team to get a huge win like the one you got over Kentucky State every now and then?
Well, first of all, I think it's quite enjoyable. Everyone gets an opportunity to play. Everyone gets an opportunity to score. And I think, too, some kids have career highs in many areas: scoring, rebounding, assists, steals. And everyone has an opportunity to feel good about themselves, and it is a good experience to have a game such as the Kentucky State game that we had. I tried to share the playing time as much as possible, realizing that we'd have a very difficult game with Bellarmine in just 2 days. So it was a good win, a lot of fun.
Then you had a couple, I think 5 or 6 players in double figures, but you got to play, well, Kim McDonald played, I think, 14 minutes, the most she's played this year. What kind of comments do you have about her play?
Well, she did a really good job for us, and it was fun to be able to put Kim McDonald in along with Amy Perkins and to free Amy Perkins up a little bit as the point guard and take some pressure off her because she usually has to play 40 minutes with a lot of pressure and handling the basketball. It gave Kim an opportunity also to take a crack at her outside shot and a few steals that we were able to get, and Kim McDonald came up with a few assists, and it did nothing but build her confidence for her. And you mentioned earlier about players coming in as freshmen and not getting a lot of playing time and how they deal with that. Kim has really done a tremendous job this year in dealing with the fact that she hasn't had a lot of playing time. And when she gets an opportunity to get in and play as many minutes that she did, it can do nothing but help her and help her confidence.
I think sometimes the players that don't normally get the playing time get more up for a game that when you look to win big than maybe some of the starters.
Oh, I don't know if that's true or not. I just think everyone probably hopes that we win the basketball game, number one, and whatever it takes. And we mentioned this a long time ago too. It appears, throughout the season that everyone has taken a turn in being our leading scorer or being our leading rebounder, and the list goes on. I think every one of our starters have taken maybe 2 or 3 turns at being the leading scorer or scoring 20-some-odd points in any particular game. So it's very evenly balanced and very team-oriented.
Now, when you played, Lisa, how did what was your feelings going into a game like that when you knew you were probably going to win pretty big and get a chance to score a lot of points?
I think going into a game like that, you have to take each game almost as like it's the most important game, almost an NCAA tournament game. And I think Coach did a very good job at that last year, going to each game, taking it the same way, doing the same things before each game, not having a shorter scouting report meeting or not doing anything less at practice, always having a walkthrough. And I think that's the important thing, that you take each game like it's your most important game, or maybe perhaps it's your last game. And going into a game like in Kentucky State, which has been a weaker program for the past couple of years, you can't take any lighter, I don't think, because you're out there to perform your best, and whether you're playing against a Bellarmine or a St. Joe or maybe a team that doesn't have as much talent, you have to take each game like it's your last or like it's the most important game.
Now, what were some of the factors in the loss at Bellarmine? I know they'd beaten you guys here earlier by about by 6. Well, I think you hit a late 3-pointer, make it a 3-point game. But what were some of the factors in Saturday's loss down at their place?
I think there were probably 3 things that really stand out in my mind. Statistically speaking, they really out-rebounded us in a major way. I believe it was 14. They had 14 more boards than we did. I feel, too, that, the squad we have this year, last year maybe averaged 5, 6, 7 minutes a game, and playing down at Bellarmine is very difficult. And I do believe, at least in the beginning of the game, that some of them were a little bit intimidated. Playing at Bellarmine. Bellarmine's a very, very good basketball team, and we just were not able to contain their drives. They drove to the basket so often. They played a very fast-paced game, and they definitely used the depth on their bench and continually substituted, putting fresh people in, and our girls started to wear down a little bit. Well, we made a terrific comeback in the second half and brought it within 2, but we just couldn't get things to continue to go for us. About 4 or 5 of us shot incredibly well from the field, over 50%, and then just a few others whom we needed some points out of, and we generally do get points out of, just did not have a good shooting night.
Now, they hit quite a few 3-point shots and attempted quite a few in that game, which is something that they normally do, but the last, when they played here at IPFW a couple weeks ago, really wasn't much of a factor.
Right. I really think they were out to try to improve in that area, because I'm sure Charlie Just, their coach, was not pleased with the fact that they only had 7 3-point shot attempts against us in our previous meeting and only made 2 of them. We basically did the same things defensively, but they were able to get more shots off and make more of them. I believe they're 9 of 20 from 3-point range, which is very, very good. It's over 40%.
Now, Lisa, you played at Bellarmine 4 times during your career. I know it's always a tough place to play. How would you compare Bellarmine against some of the other places in the league that you had to play? Because I know St. Joe, is another one of the tougher places to play.
Yeah. Bellarmine has always had an outstanding basketball program, and they have very, very talented athletes, and it is tough to play at Bellarmine. It does remind me of a St. Joe, crowded gyms, and but I think going in there, you can't take it as that it's a hard place to play. I think you're going against the team, and you're not going against the fans or the baskets. If the baskets are a little different from what you're used to at home, and that's the attitude you have to go in there with, playing against the other team. And everything's the same basically. Besides, everything's the same here at home. The baskets are the same height and the same type of floor. But like I said, Bellarmine is a tough team to play down there, and we were fortunate enough to win my sophomore year down there, and I don't think it's impossible. And I think IPFW, has a very good chance in the future to win at Bellarmine again.
Now, when you were a player, what were some of the things that were more difficult about playing on the road than at home?
Probably the first thing that sticks out in my mind is probably the long bus drive, especially when you play the day of, when you have to take a 4-hour bus ride to the game and play, right after you get off the bus. The legs are a little stiff once in a while. Other than that, you don't have the fan support that you do here. You have here at home. We were fortunate enough to have a lot of parents come when I played, and I know this year they still have quite a few parents that come to the game, which is always helpful. Other than that, basically, you just have to go in there thinking that you're going to win and not worry about the officials maybe that will be against you or the type of floor that they have, like I said before, but just go in there with a positive attitude and hopefully come out with a win.
Now this week you got St. Joe on Thursday at home, Lewis on Saturday, your final 2 home games of the year. Now St. Joe, you guys lost, I think, by 6, 78-72 last time at their place. Do you do anything different this time?
Well, we're going to try to play the same type ball game that we did at St. Joe. They shot very well from the field. If I remember, I think they shot about 10% higher than their normal field goal percentage average. We were able to contain their outside shot for the most part. Tia Glass and Sloan Hoy, their inside players, are the key players and the ones that we have to do a better job of defensively. They came out and played us very hard and very strong and a very fast-paced game from the start. And I was very pleased with the fact that our girls were able to keep up with them. They kept putting fresh people in and really picking up the tempo, and we were able to keep up with them, and I was very pleased with that. I think we went down by as many as 9 points the first half, brought it back to within 4 at halftime, and it was a relatively close ball game until the very end. We had to foul a few times, and they made their free throws. But basically, we're going to play the same type of game, we hope, and I think the intensity will be there. Playing St. Joe is always something the kids really get motivated to do. And it will be a special occasion for us as well, with Lisa having her jersey retirement honors that night as well.
Now, the last time you played, the game was just a little bit more high-scoring than your games tend to average about 64, 66 games. That one was in the mid-70s. Do you expect a little more scoring this time?
Well, whatever happens, happens. We do try to control the basketball game as much as we can and use as much of the 30-second clock as we can. We've been successful with that. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact, too, as far as how many times we get to go to the free throw line. This past weekend, we went very few times, and when we did go, we just didn't shoot very well. And that has a lot to do with the game. Our shooting percentage and our rebounding probably are the 2 key areas that we need to focus on.
Now, when you were a player, was this always one of the bigger games on the schedule, St. Joe?
Yeah, St. Joe is a rival, and I think maybe some of that has to do with some of the players that play at St. Joe. I've known them for a long time, went to camp with several of them, and Tia Glass from the Fort Wayne area, and it's always a fun game to play with them because we have a good relationship with them, and it has been a very big game, and like I mentioned earlier, that the win we had at St. Joe was a good win for us. It got us into the NCAA tournament, I feel. And it's always exciting to play against them because they have such a good program.
Is it a little extra excitement knowing that they always bring seems like about a couple hundred people into our gym rooting for St. Joe?
Yeah, they have good fan support both here when they come to IPFW and when we go up to St. Joe.
Now Saturday you guys have Lewis in town, team you're neck and neck with in the standings. What type of game do you expect against Lewis Saturday?
I believe it will be a very evenly matched contest. They have some good inside play. They probably have a little better perimeter game than we do. Bonnie Richrath is leading in scoring for them and is doing quite well from 3-point range. So we do have to get out and extend our defense a little bit to take care of their outside shooting. We lost by 10 at their place. We did not play a very good basketball game. We shot 30% from the field, which is unbelievable, actually. And I really can't come up with excuses, not that I want to, as to why we didn't win that basketball game, but we're hoping that we'll have a different outcome on Saturday.
Now with the 4 games you've got left this year, what is your goal as far as a conference finish? What place do you think you can realistically finish?
Well, we're hoping for 6th, perhaps 5th. And that's something we've been talking about as a team. Last weekend when we played Ashland, we were tied with them, and we knew that if we could beat them, we could move up a notch. And we did do that. In fact, for a very short-lived period, we were ahead of Lewis, and they came up with a victory this past weekend, and now we are tied with them in the conference, and we hope to go ahead of them by winning this Thursday and Saturday.
Now, Saturday's game against Lewis will be senior night. You only have one senior on the team this year. Amy Hogan, you going to do anything special before the game?
We will have a presentation. That's been a tradition. We started last year. We'll present her with a nice plaque and also some flowers and recognize her parents as well. And then following the game, we will have a reception in our blue room that we call it, and we'll have some cake, punch, coffee, and so forth, and invite all the fans and parents to come in and join us between the women and the men's game.
Now, Amy hasn't been one of the top scorers on the team. What are the things that she contributes to the team?
I would have to say two things that stick out in my mind the most would be, number one, her defensive ability. She really does do a good job when I stick her on one of their better three-point shooters. It seems when Amy gets in the game, oftentimes she holds them scoreless. In addition to that, I think, too, in making good decisions, having that senior experience. I can recall a few times when I put her in maybe the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game when it was a very close basketball game, simply because I had a lot of confidence in the decisions that she would make in the final moments of the game.
You got to play with Amy for several years. Matter of fact, you went to the same high school. What do you remember about some of the moments playing with Amy those 3 years?
It's been great playing with Amy. She, like Coach said, I think she's a very good defensive player, and I can remember when we played at Dwenger, you know, she was put on the taller guard because she has some height. She's 5'10" guard, and she does a real good job guarding, you know, one of their three-point shooters or one of their better offensive players. I think she has shown a lot of leadership this year, and last year she was able to start some of the games for us and kind of shared playing time with Dawn Dressler, and both of them did an outstanding job, I think, for us last year. And I can remember Amy especially doing a good job at giving the ball to the people that she felt comfortable with could to score for us. And I know she came up with quite a few assists last year. And she is a good decision maker and gets the ball where it needs to be, and real good player for IPFW this year.
Okay, I'd like to remind everyone that IPFW finished the home portion of its schedule at home Thursday against St. Joe and Saturday against Lewis. And at halftime of the men's game Thursday, Lisa Miller will have her number 24 retired.